You just saw the headline iPhone 18 Pro battery, only a tiny upgrade, and you thought, okay, same old Apple. But here's the thing nobody is telling you modest gains in battery capacity are not necessarily indicative of a modest battery life improvement. The iPhone 18 Pro models are also expected to benefit from the new A20 Pro chip, which will use TSMC's cutting edge 2 nanometer process and should subsequently be more power efficient. So, the Mach number, that is the wrong thing to be looking at. And there is one spec combination in this phone that once you see it makes the small upgrade story completely fall apart. I'll show you exactly what I mean, but let me start with what just leaked. The iPhone 18 Pro is dropping in September 2026. The iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are expected to launch featuring a smaller dynamic island, a simplified camera control, and an upgraded main camera with a variable aperture. I've been tracking every leak, battery numbers, colored dummies, chip specs, the full picture, and honestly, there is more here than the clickbait headlines are telling you. The story is not just about it is about four completely separate things, all improving at the same time, and nobody's doing that. Math, let's do it. Now, okay, so the leak, according to Weibo based leaker Digital Chat Station, Apple is testing the iPhone 18 Pro with different battery capacities for the China and US versions. The Chinese model is said to have a roughly 4056 milliampere hour battery, while the US model is said to have a roughly 4288 milliampere hour battery. And every tech site ran with only a marginal increase, which technically is true. The physical SIM variant gets an increase of just 68 milliamp hours over the equivalent iPhone 17 Pro, while the US model gains 36 mAh. 36 mAh for context, that is not a number that will change your life on its own. But here is what everyone is leaving out. The A20 Pro chip should deliver roughly 15% faster CPU performance and up to 30% better power efficiency based on analyst projections tracking TSMC's production roadmap. So you are pairing a slightly bigger battery with a chip that is 30% more efficient. That is not an incremental upgrade. That is the engineering equivalent of buying a smaller gas tank and also doubling your car's miles per gallon. The tank is the same size. You go further, leaks expect mixed use runtime to clear 40 hours past Apple's stated 39 hours on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. That is the number that matters, not 36. Now there is a genuinely fascinating wrinkle in this battery story that I have not seen a single major outlet lead with. The iPhone 18 Pro is expected to expand eSIM only support to European markets for the first time, meaning buyers across the EU who previously received physical SIM variants with the smaller cell will now automatically land on the larger 4288 mAh configuration. That is a key upgrade for a large market that has been shortchanged on capacity in the past. So if you are in Europe, you have been getting the slightly smaller battery for years, not because Apple did not like you, because your phone had a SIM tray in it and that tray physically took up space. Apple removed the tray from US iPhones, starting with the iPhone 14 lineup, whereas iPhones sold in China have continued to include one. Without the tray, Apple can pack a slightly larger battery into the available internal space, hence the difference in capacity. So for European buyers, this might actually be the biggest battery jump they have ever received. And the headline said, marginal upgrade, let's talk about the chip, because this is where the real story lives. The biggest hardware story is the A20 Pro chip on TSMC's 2 nanometer process, the first true node shrink for Apple Silicon in 3 years. 3 years, that is not a marketing refresh. That is a generational leap. The A20 chip will be packaged with TSMC's wafer level multi-chip module technology, with RAM integrated directly onto the same wafer as the CPU, GPU, and neural engine, rather than the RAM being adjacent, okay? I know that sounds like something you would skim past. Stick with me for exactly 10 seconds. What this means in practice, your processor and your memory are now essentially fused together. The distance between them goes from millimeters to micrometers. The practical outcome: faster, smarter, Apple Intelligence features running entirely on device, more complex AI tasks without cloud round trips, snappier multitasking. It is the kind of foundational plumbing upgrade that does not make a flashy headline, but you feel it every single day. And it is also why the battery numbers are misleading, because this chip is not just faster, it is fundamentally more efficient at everything it does. Now we need to talk about the camera, because this one is actually new. A variable aperture camera is a lens that can physically open and close to control how much light enters the sensor, similar to how your eye adjusts in bright or dark environments. This gives you real hardware control over depth of field and low light performance, rather than relying purely on software tricks. No iPhone has shipped with this. Before, every iPhone camera before this had one aperture setting, and software did the rest. Think of it like a photographer who only has one lens and they are really, really good at Photoshop. That worked for a long time, it worked great, but the mechanical aperture, that is a different conversation. If implemented, it could result in sharper portraits, better low light performance, and more flexibility for landscape photography, bringing iPhone photography closer to traditional cameras. Now, one honest caveat here: supply chain reports tracked by Macromores suggest the variable aperture will launch as a Pro Max exclusive. So, if you are buying the standard 18 Pro, not the Max, this might not be your camera upgrade year. That is the kind of thing reviews will not say clearly enough. I'm saying it clearly. All right, colors. I know some of you skipped straight here, respect. While other sources previously reported on a dark red color, Apple has been working on a dark cherry option to serve as the headline. New color Bloomberg's Mark Gurman and other leakers had suggested that Apple was experimenting with a shade of red, but the hue will be much closer to wine than fruit punch, described as a deep wine-like burgundy with subtle coffee and purple undertones. It is muted compared to last year's vibrant cosmic orange. So if you were expecting something that screams, this is not that. This is the color you wear to dinner, not the color you wear to a street fair. The dark cherry features a purplish hue, while the light blue resembles iPhone 13 Pro's Sierra Blue, offering fresh alternatives to existing color palettes. Apple may drop one color before the expected September launch, following historical patterns from previous iPhone releases, so technically 4 colors leaked. One of them might not make it to shelves based on history. My bet on which one gets cut: the silver. It has been there since basically forever. And Apple loves a dramatic lineup, but that is speculation. Just mine. One more thing: the notch. Well, the island multiple sources indicate Apple is shrinking the dynamic island by approximately 35% by moving some Face ID components under the display, creating a cleaner, less obtrusive front experience without achieving full under-display Face ID. Just yet, this means the display will have more screen space for content when the dynamic island is not showing live activities. Is it the full under-display Face ID that people have been asking about? No. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman and display analyst Ross Young both suggest the dynamic island survives rather than disappears entirely, but smaller is genuinely better here. Every time. Every single time. Okay, here is where I land. The iPhone 18 Pro battery story is being told completely wrong. The number is small. The upgrade is not. The iPhone 18 Pro models are expected to benefit from the new A20 Pro chip on TSMC 2 nanometer process and should be more power efficient. The devices are also likely to get Apple's C2 modem, which could also bring a battery boost. Four things improving at the same time: chip efficiency, modem efficiency, slightly bigger cell, smarter display scaling. That is not a marginal upgrade, that is a compounding upgrade. And those hit different if you are on an iPhone 15 Pro or older. This is your year. Seriously, the 2 nanometer chip alone is 3 years of performance in one jump. If you are on a 17 Pro, honestly, the variable aperture camera and the smaller dynamic island are real, but they might not be 1100 real for you. That is a fair call. Despite the pricier components, Apple may absorb some of the additional costs rather than passing them on to consumers. A possibility that aligns with previous industry checks, suggesting the company plans to keep iPhone 18 pricing steady. So the price holding steady, if that is true, makes the math easier. The one thing I'll leave you with: dark cherry, that color is going to be everywhere in 6 months. Everyone will say they called it, you saw it here first, or you saw it in the leaks, but you saw it here in context, which is better. What is the upgrade that would actually move you off your current phone? Let me know, because I have a feeling the comments on this one are going to be interesting to